Spring sports are now in full swing. Quinnipiac softball has secured their first win in the MAC conference this year and went 2-2 over the weekend. Plus, we're discussing men's and women's lacrosse and what they have to do to move up in the standings before the end of the season. Get ready to cover all that and more on Bobcat Breakdown. Good evening from the Media Suite and welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Abby Blackmore. With me tonight are our two analysts, Lo Yarnell and Eric Kerr. How are you both feeling tonight?
I'm feeling great. I don't know about you, EK, but you better be ready to talk about some softball because you're going up against the ex-softball player.
I know, yes. I'm aware of that, but I do have a little bit of lacrosse advantage on me. Called the lacrosse game before, so we'll see what happens. I'm ready to get rocking.
All right, amazing. We'll be starting out the night with softball. The Bobcats went 2-2 over the weekend. Have the Bobcats started to turn a corner this season? Lo, let's start with you.
I mean, I think the obvious answer when you look at this is when you come into the weekend at 5-18, 2 wins is going to seem like a lot, but this team still has a lot to go through and a long conference stretch ahead of them. Quinnipiac is still only hitting .224 as a team compared to their opponents' .306, which did drop a little bit with the 2 wins. Still not where they need to be because they're still I think that they're 9th in the MAC, So they are tied. However, they are tied for last in the MAC as a pitching staff with a 5.52 ERA. And they are last in the MAC in fielding percentage at 97% and tied for most errors with 50. That's most errors in the MAC. So on top of all of that, that's not going the way that they want to, hitting, pitching, fielding. On top of that, the next teams that they face in their schedule, Ryder, who's number 2 in the MAC, Siena, who's number 1 in the MAC, and then Iona, who's number 3 in the MAC. So they have a long stretch ahead of them for conference, on top of injuries, on top of hitting. Again, everything that we've mentioned before, I just think they have a long way to go, and to be blindsided by 2 wins just doesn't take into account how they came into the weekend.
I'm with that, and I can't say too much different. However, I'm going to add a little bit to the point as well. The 2 wins that this team got was against Manhattan and St. Peter's, and those teams, if you think about it, they're like even worse than Quinnipiac is as far as standing goes in the MAC. And those teams' 2 wins came against the Bobcats alone. So, hey, if you're celebrating wins against teams that you're lower than, then that's not where you want to be. Again, as you already mentioned, they got to improve the pitching, they got to improve the defense. They have the lowest amount of strikeouts as well in the MAC, so they're not able to get out players as well as, and also giving up a lot of runs, so that's definitely not the greatest thing for them. So pretty much it's, again, all about pitching and defenses. You got to win the defensive side of the ball, regardless if it's baseball or softball. And this team simply just is not doing that. So I can't see them being a legitimate threat until they figure out those issues.
I have to agree. I mean, but even with the St. Peter's, when St. Peter's has turned their season around completely, the 1 win was good, but that is a game, especially St. Peter's, the split was good. The Manhattan game, they came into that series 10-11 in the MAC. If Quinnipiac was going to turn a corner this season, they needed to sweep that series.
All right, great. Well, looking at the roster, Jacqueline Gonzalez is a first-year pitcher who threw a complete game in the first game of the doubleheader on Monday. Is the freshman arm something the team can rely on with 14 games remaining? If not, who can they rely on in the pitching rotation? Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as far as her ability alone in the stats, I think it's someone that they can rely on for sure. There's no doubt about that. However, they got to find more consistent answers because they can't just rely on her. If you pitch someone as often as they're pitching Gonzalez, her arm's simply going to get tired. She's already pitched over 51 innings this year. That's second on the team. But more importantly, her production has been ramped up tremendously over the past 2 games. Not only did she pitch a complete game against St. Peter's, but she also just pitched 2 innings of relief in Manhattan. And then the same game in that series before, she pitched over 3 innings of relief as well. And then 2 innings of relief against Niagara, 1 inning of relief against Canisius as well. So simply put, she's had action in all the MAC games this season, and over time, that arm is going to wear out for you. 16 of the team's 27 games, Gonzalez has been pitching either in relief or starting. So simply put, they can't keep relying on her forever, though, because her arm's just going to get tired, and that's not going to help. So the other pitchers really got to step up for this team.
I agree for you, and here's why. Because if you look at the pitching duo in Tori McGraw and Julia Weisty, they were the 2-man workhorse all last season. Now they are the worst ERA stats-wise on the staff. And so you can tell that exactly to your point what they were saying with the load bearing. You're playing doubleheaders, teams multiple 2-4 times in a season. When you're throwing 2 pitchers and you're rotating between 2 pitchers, they don't have any secrets left. And you could tell because last year, the combined two in McGraw and Weesty pitched 222 innings, all but 15 of the entire season across 36 games. They both ended. Torrey McGraw had a 4.75 ERA. Julia Weesty had a 6.09. This year, again, they both have the worst ERAs on the staff. Torrey McGraw has a 7.12. Weesty has an 11.31. And they've pitched only 36.4 innings in 26 games. So with the load bearing, like you're saying, we've seen it before with these teams. We can literally look at the stats right now and see that the 2 pitchers that were their go-tos last season had too many innings, got too many looks. They're struggling now as a consequence.
At least by the stats goes, they're definitely getting more pitchers involved. I see 5 to 6 names on the Quinnipiac stat sheet, so that is a good sign. But at the end of the day, it's about getting more of them involved consistently, and I think Quinnipiac's got to get back to that. Again, you don't want to give up runs here, but you got to give other people some chances.
Absolutely, definitely. Giving more of the roster a coverage. So moving on to baseball, outside of the 2 most reliable pitchers, who are Garcia and Setier, who can the team potentially rely on moving forward? Lo, what are your thoughts?
I am going to go with Jimmy Hagan, the right-hander from Westfield, Mass. And I'm picking him because literally when I look at pitchers, what makes a good pitcher, I'm looking at what are their opponents batting against them. Jimmy Hagan has only 13.1 innings pitched, but has the lowest ERA on the team and the lowest opponent batting average. And although it's only 13.1 innings, don't get up in arms because all those 13.1 innings came in with huge outings against NC State and James Madison, 2 of, if not the hardest teams, most competitive teams that baseball squad has faced. And so he pitched against those 2 teams 6 innings and only gave up 3 hits. Last outing against Hartford, he struck out 4 in just 2.1 innings. He's only given up 9 hits in 46 at bats. And for a team that's 6-19 on a 5-game losing streak that was broken today with their win over Hartford,
Huge win against Hartford.
But regardless of that, Hagan seems like the logical next fit to try out based off of ERA and opponent batting average.
I'm going to go with someone that's slightly a bit more experienced for me. It's going to be Chris Massa. Doesn't have the greatest stats as far as Jimmy Hagan goes, but he's someone that can still get it done. 4th in the team in ERA with 7.56, as you see on your screen. And also has a very good batting average with opponents against him at 273. So he does a good job of keeping runners off base for the most part. He had a strong outing in his last appearance against Marist, which is also very, very good for him at 1 innings pitched, not allowing any hits or runs, and also to strong out against a favorable St. John's opponent that's not even in the conference earlier in the season without 4 strikeouts there. So he's known to be able to get out guys in an efficient way, and I could see him definitely having a huge step up in the relief pitching going forward.
I just feel like when you look at what is happening, because obviously with baseball, you have the rotations, you have everything, you're working through so many people. Having someone like Jimmy Hagan, an arm on your bench with not that many innings and really good outings at that, why not give him a shot? And today would have been a great time to try that out.
Both making great points. On the field, the Bobcats have had 47 errors to their opponent's 27 errors. How much have the team's struggles have been attributed to the fielding, Eric?
You said the numbers right there, Abby. It is tremendous. I'll touch upon today's game as well, as they've actually had 4 errors in the first 5 innings of the game against Hartford. Somehow they were still able to come out top despite having 7 total errors in the game. If you make mistakes in the field, it's simply just not going to help and get you out of the thick of things when it's come making those errors. They're 3rd highest in the MAC in that stat in errors. And also, simply put, the pitching just hasn't been helpful either. So if you're not getting a lot of chances with pitching as well, 3rd highest ERA, 3rd highest batting average allowed as well, then it's going to lead to some problems. They allow the 4th most runs as well, and that's obviously got to start with the defense. You can't be giving mistakes to opposing teams. You look at that stat line, the score was tied at 2-2 with the 5th inning. Hartford had no errors, and Quinnipiac had 4, as I mentioned. So that just goes a long way. If there's no errors there, then, hey, maybe Quinnipiac has a more comfortable lead, and it's a much bigger margin of victory for the Bobcats today.
I agree with what you're saying. Yes, the errors need to be better. They need to be minimized. You know that if you're in the field, if you're playing, playing it, watching it, doesn't matter. You need to be tight on defense. However, Eric, tell me, how do you defend against 65 doubles and 29 home runs? You don't. So the pitching needs to be better. It comes down on the pitching. It always has. It always will. This pitching staff has an ERA of 9.22, which is good for 9th in the MAC. So somehow they're not the worst, but that is almost a double-digit ERA as a staff. That is unacceptable, and you're not going to win games. You're not going to beat good teams if you have to counter with 10, 11 runs every single game. There's nothing that your defenders could do in the field when their neck's being broken with every ball that gets hit into the outfield.
But here's another thing too, right? Like if you're making mistakes in the field, like errors consistently like that doesn't help your pitching, because hypothetical here, say if I'm in the outfield and in center field I make a big drop when we're about to get out of the inning and out number 2, pitcher's like, oh, I got to pitch to the next best batter in the order. How does that help?
That's the pitcher's job. You're going to face the next batter in the order.
Right, but it's up to the fielders to be able to not make the mistakes in the play and end the inning, get it over with.
But the majority of the time, they can't even defend because everything's being hoped.
I don't know. I think the defense is way more important.
It's definitely heating up. Now, unfortunately, it is time for our first break of the night. We'll be discussing the men's and women's lacrosse teams and bringing back Lyrical Genius. We'll be right back.
Honey, what I think you need is a socket wrench.
I played JV basketball.
I'm sorry. I don't think it looks right.
This is good, and it's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/therightseat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
I'm gonna call my dad.
Meet the scan, a simple procedure whose mission is to detect lung cancer early.
I'm here to save you.
But I feel fine.
That's great, but you may still be at high risk for lung cancer.
Oh man, that's a new fence.
If you smoke, early detection could save your life. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
I think it's just vapor with flavor.
It won't hurt my kid like cigarettes, right?
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
My kid?
My kid knows it's dangerous.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer.
She's on the honor roll.
She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
Thanks for staying with us. We are now moving over from the diamond to the lacrosse field. With 4 games remaining for the women's team, Lo, what is the biggest area of weakness for the Bobcat squad?
I'm going to have to go with shot percentage on this one, just because they started off really strong, but they've fallen off. But when you look at it, I think I'm going to blame it on the amount of shots that they're getting off, but they're not finishing on them. When this team beat Boston, UMass Lowell, and Marist, they shot anywhere from 43 to 53%, but in their last 4 losses, their shot percentage remained below 40%. One of them barely even broke 30%. So they're creating plenty of opportunities for themselves. They are statistically on par with the rest of the MAC for goals allowed versus goals scored. However, I just think they need better quality looks to look for, and when they get those looks, they need to capitalize on them. You have to score goals to win games.
There's no doubt about that, Lo, and I'm going to agree with you as well, and also add a couple of extra stats as well. As far as the assist game, they are the worst in the MAC in that stat, and no player has more than 6 assists in this roster. So if you're not sharing the ball, which is very important in women's lacrosse, much more so than men's lacrosse, then you're not going to be able to get a consistent offense done. You mentioned already they're 7th worst in the MAC in goals per game, and 3 out of the 4 losses they've had in this losing streak recently, they've had under 10 goals. So essentially, again, assisting, facilitating, getting others involved, that's going to be the major key point that this Quinnipiac lacrosse team is going to have to work on going forward to try to get back to their success that they've had.
Both great takes. Now moving over to the men's team, predicted to finish 4th in the MAC, currently bringing up the rear. Eric, are they going to be able to climb up in the standings by the end of the season?
I think the main thing for them, if they're going to get there, is they got to find more consistent defense and also mainly highlighting the goaltending play. Nick DiMuccio has to find a way to get back to what he did last year. Has had a lower goals against average, higher save percentage, which led to a better record for the team overall at 4-3 when he was between the crease, as you see right there on your screen. This year, he's 6 out of 7 for the MAC in saves per game and save percentage, 5th out of 7 for the MAC, as well as goals against average as well, with 13 goals against per game. So pretty much at the end of the day, it's not all on him. It's really a lot of other different players in this team trying to step up to get in the path of scorers and shooters up at the crease to help DiMuccio out and not have it just be all on him, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to help this Quinnipiac team, the overall defense, to mainly help DiMuccio have some better success at the goaltending spot.
I think the only way that Quinnipiac climbs in the rankings is if they somehow manage to climb over the only team in front of them, which is Siena. And it depends on, it all comes down to the regular season finale matchup, because Quinnipiac's next 2 games are against St. Bonnie's, are against Virginia, the ACC powerhouse with an 8-2 record right now, and then they go ahead and they follow that up with St. Bonnie's, who's first in the MAC, and also with an 8-2 record. They totally have the capability to, do the sports thing and pull the upset, absolutely, but anticipating that those are losses, the only way they move up is if Siena drops down. And Siena and Quinnipiac are currently tied for last, and it all depends on how Siena does and their schedule coming up to it, where those 2 teams are going into that matchup, because we can assume, again, that Quinnipiac's going to have 2 in the loss column. What is Siena going to do? Because if they're not going up over Siena, they're going to stay last in the rankings.
It would be a great narrative, though, if they somehow pull off that upset against Virginia.
I would love to see it. I mean, it happens. This is a sports world. No game is written. They can absolutely pull off the upset. It is ACC, but do it. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Why not?
So now it is time to have a little bit of fun. We'll be playing some Lyrical Genius. I'll be asking you both to choose a song that represents how you are currently feeling about each of the sports teams we've just discussed. We'll start with the men's lacrosse, and with Lo, what do you think?
My song, I can't believe I'm singing this. It's Into the Thick of It by The Backyardigans. So, into the thick of it, into the thick of it, into the thick of it. Okay, anyway,
there you go.
Because, like he literally just said, they play Virginia, 8-2 Virginia, ACC Virginia. Then they play St. Bonnie's, first in the MAC, 8-2. And then for those, with only 4 games left in their season, 2 of those games are against St. Bonnie's and Virginia. No thanks, I'm good. I think that they've got a big road ahead of them, and they're literally going into the woods and on they push, and they don't know where they're going.
I'm going to go with a classic one as well, and normally this person is known for singing Girls Want to Have Fun, but since it's men's lacrosse, we're going to go with a different song. If you're lost, you can look, and you will find me time after time.
Oh, a little vibrato.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I did a little bit of choir in high school.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I have that going me. But the reason why I have that song is because time after time they've been scrounging to try to find a win. They won the very first game of the season against UMass Lowell, and they also just won their recent game against Canisius this past week. They haven't won a game in between. So time after time they're trying to find their wins. At the end of the day, it's got to be more consistent effort for this men's lacrosse team. They got to try to string up some more wins together down the stretch here, have better seeding, potentially come playoff time, and to get out of the bottom cellar of the standings.
All right, I love this singing. Great picks for the men's lacrosse. Let's move over to the women's team. What are your choices, Eric?
I'm going to go with a little bit more right now with The Weeknd, one of my favorite artists, by the way. And we're obviously going to go with a little Blinding Lights. Ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. Because they've been a bit caught up in their success at the start of the season. They were 5-5 at one point, they were 5-5, and then they went on a 2-game losing streak after that, which is part of a 4-game losing streak. So now they're 5-7. They're a little bit caught up in their success, but if they find a way to get back into the groove, get back into the rhythm, I could see them getting back to a good spot. They're very on pace to get to that 7-win mark, and very on pace to have a winning season, which could be the first time they've done it since 2012.
And on that point, that's kind of went into what I picked my song in for the women's lax team. I picked T-Pain's Up Down, as we know, I don't even know. So it would be records going up, down, trying to see what's up now.
Hey.
So I would like to see their record go up, because on the natural, gravity, Newton's law, whatever, what goes up must come down. So if it's down, it's got to come back up. So I think that they're going to turn the season around, and they're going to end up with one of the best seasons in the past 5 years that they've had.
Yeah.
Amazing. Let's switch over to softball. Any standout songs you have, Eric?
For me, it's going to be a little Frank Ocean, one of my favorite artists over there. And we'll see it on your screen here. And you're lost in the heat of it all. One of my favorite songs, specifically with this team, is because they're trying to find their groove. They started out 0-4 in MAC play. They were lost at the start of MAC play, but they're not trying to find themselves a little bit. We talked about it earlier in the show. They're 2-2 after this weekend with Manhattan and St. Peter's. So they're trying to find themselves. They're not totally lost. They're trying to find their way back into the threshold and get some success going.
I picked for the to avoid redundancy with the lost stuff. I picked "Circles" by Post Malone. We do this every time, season change. Anyways, so we do this every time. The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting different results. Every year and year again, softball has found themselves in starting conference, going into conference with injuries and a lot of injuries. Right now, they have no catchers. Literally zero. They've got Kayla Thomas, the first baseman, and Kayla Jensen, the outfielder, suited up behind the plate after Hannah Davis went down with an injury. And they're not putting up runs. They are being outscored 184-85. And we've talked about the pitching before. No need to go back on that. But it's the same issues that have been repeating season and season again. They do this every time.
One could say they're lost in circles.
One could say.
Absolutely. Finally, we have baseball. What song represents the Bobcat season best, Lo?
I would like to apologize to lower your volume in case. So I remember it all too well. However, I would like to sing, everyone knows how this goes, but I just want to say, and you call me up again just to break me like a promise. Because I remember all too well 2019 when the MAC baseball team won the MAC, and then they took it to East Carolina in the NCAA regionals. And I just dream about that team sometimes. And although the schedules in the past few years after that MAC win aren't what they want to be, I literally cannot help but just say they won the MAC literally less than 3 years ago. There's guys on that roster who have won the MAC. They have the potential to do it again.
I have a very similar theme with you, but a little bit of a different song from classic Green Day. Who doesn't love Green Day? I walk this empty street on the boulevard of broken dreams. Simply because they're in a path of broken dreams. As you mentioned already, they beat ECU in that NCAA tournament, made a good run in 2019, but they haven't had that similar success since then. So they're on a boulevard of broken dreams, not achieving the expectations that John Delaney and company would like to have, and they're just trying to get back there.
With that out of the way, I would like to say our tone on that, put some respect on that, because our tone could have been so much worse.
I was about to say, if sports doesn't work out for either of you guys, American Idol, audition, maybe any of those kind of talent shows?
Get us in The Voice. American Idol is too.
All right. The Voice is probably a better one. Now it's time for our last commercial break of the night. When we come back, we'll be discussing the game of the week and our final roars. We'll be right back.
Type 2 diabetes can have a big impact on your life, but how can it be prevented? Well, the first step is knowing if you have prediabetes, a serious medical condition that puts you at high risk for type 2 diabetes. 1 in 3 American adults has prediabetes, but more than 80% don't know they have it. The good news is, prediabetes can be reversed, and for many people, healthy changes in their daily routine can make a big difference. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. It's here. It's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. Now it is time for the final roars. Eric, let's have you kick us off.
Abby, thank you so much. It's hard to believe that tonight will be my last ever show on Q30 television, the first club that I joined at Quinnipiac University. Reaching this point, I can confidently say I have established not only many strong connections for the working world, but most importantly, friendships. It was a friendship that I established with former Sports Pause executive producers Brandy Del Valle and Katie O'Keefe that led me to try associating producing, which got me more comfortable with this Q30 family. I then shifted to B reporting my sophomore year, leading to a 3-year stint covering first-year head coach, at the time Kyle Robinson, and the rest of the Quinnipiac volleyball crew in the fall, to then picking up Quinnipiac women's basketball and men's basketball in the winter. Junior year, I returned to the producing seat, this time to work on this show, Bobcat Breakdown, alongside Ryan Flaherty and Jack Main. I had the privilege to work with Liz Flynn, the next executive producers of this show, of course, Heather Owen and Hannah Smith at the time, and associate producers the same year. Now, while my lows and others' times are soon to be done, I always like to think of this approach, the next one up. Others may be out, but there's always new talent coming in, and I definitely will look forward to seeing what that new talent looks like from afar.
When I think of my 4 years at Quinnipiac, the first phrase that comes to my mind is I was. I was the catcher on the softball team, a bright-eyed player from California who had worked 10 years to finally achieve the dream of playing at the Division I level. I was a teammate, a friend, a student athlete. I was a lost sophomore, scrambling to piece together what college would look like without my sport. I was an outcast from the only community I had ever known, thrust into a reality others had had 2 years to adjust to. I was behind in my own involvement at Quinnipiac. Thankfully, that didn't last long, and those are all things that I was. They are not who I am. Now, I am an associate producer for Sports Pause, a women's basketball beat reporter, a graduate sports journalism student. I am a proud member of student media, surrounded by lifelong friends who share the same passions as me. I am the ex-athlete turned sports journalist who is now an associate editor at ESPN. And I wouldn't be who I am today without the unwavering supporting and love student media and the journalism program gave me during my 4 years. They embraced who I am, lifted me up, and encouraged me to continue to use my voice to speak out and inspire change. I thought I was a different person when I started at Q, but it's because of these people I now know who I am. To Q30, QBSN, Molly Annity, Rich Hanley, Margarita Diaz, Nick Petruskevich, Barry Sachs, and Jim Baskell, thank you. To my friends and family, thank you for loving me through the ups and downs. This journey was a wild one, but I wouldn't have made it through without anyone else by my side. And finally, to Quinnipiac, I'll leave you all with a quote to remember. Well-behaved women seldom make history. Thank you.
Well, it's my first and last time probably at the desk for Breakdown, and it's been amazing to just see how hard all these producers work behind the scenes. But I'm not going to flatter them too much. Instead, I'll shine a little light on another role within Q30 that involves our producers and many more of our members, and that's our beat reporters. We have fantastic beat reporters across all 3 departments, but without a doubt, do our sports beat reporters have their work cut out for them. I've been fortunate enough to have sat down with every single one of them, including Lo and Eric, at some point or another to discuss ideas and welcome them to the team. So many of the notable faces here in this organization got their start in this position and involves covering multiple games weekly and spending hours in the media suite late at night putting together highlights, packages, rap sounds, articles, and more. Trust me when I say I've been there some of those nights and I do not envy them. Half the work putting together these shows are going to the games, getting the footage, and interviewing the coaches and players. And even after all that, they're still hungry for more. We've had members bring forward creative new ideas, bring different angles and takes to stories, and even some creating and self-assigning new beats to cover teams that have never been reported on before. The sports department arguably was knocked down the most during COVID, but they've come back swinging better than ever. So like I always say, keep up the amazing work, but most importantly, especially to our seniors, enjoy those last 4 weeks. All right, that was a great debate between the two of you.
Thanks for the flattering words as well, appreciate
Absolutely, no problem. You guys will both be greatly missed. Who do you think won in this debate?
Oh, me.
You think you?
Obviously.
No?
I mean, no, because I slam dunked you on the softball and the baseball, and
It's not a fair advantage.
And you agreed with what I said on lacrosse, which was what you came into this saying. Well, I've got lacrosse over you, and I think we part up on that. So with process of elimination, I win. Sorry.
Eric, any parting words?
No, it just.
Or we could say it's a tie, and everyone gets a participation trophy, but then I won.
I think
Carry
everybody
on.
did a great job. That's my take.
Abby's always got to be the nice person.
Abby's right. At the end of the day, Abby's right.
You know, that's how I am. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Make sure you stay up to date on all things Quinnipiac sports by checking out our Twitter at Q30Sports and our website, Q30TV.com. For the producers, everyone working hard behind the scenes, Lo and Eric, I'm your host, Abby Blackmore. Thank you for spending your Tuesday night with us, and we'll see you next week on Bobcat Breakdown. Good night.